This episode is sponsored by Day by Day Book, a guided journal that helps you navigate the ups and downs of change while creating a life you love. For more information on the classic, recovery, or teen day book, go to livedaybyday.com.
Well, sometimes it can just be about imagining. Imagine the situation. How is it going to go? What's it going to be like? Because if you could predict what was going to happen when you spoke to those 5 people or those 15 or 50 people, if you could predict that it was going to go seamless, would you show up differently? Would you show up more confident knowing that the audience is going to love me? When you pick up your phone, you're going to go do an IG live or an IG story. What if you just said to yourself, everybody who watches this is going to fall in love with this idea, this tip, this thought of mine, and you start sharing it.
Welcome to Journeys Through Change, a podcast that inspires women to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing's off the table. I'll be offering up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and sharing interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they learned along the way. So get cozy in your favorite comfy chair and let's get started. Have you ever looked back and recalled a defining moment or event that took your life or career in an entirely different direction? In some cases, it can take years to recognize it with greater understanding, but when it hits you, it all seems to make sense. Laurie-Ann Murabito went from being the shy girl who couldn't make eye contact with others to becoming a successful professional speaker, and her path to honing her skill began when she simply agreed to put herself out there and step onto the stage. After seeing the impact she had on her audience, she soon left her corporate job with no sales experience or a business plan and used her speaking to start filling her coaching roster. In only 3 months, she replaced her medical device salary and she was off to the races. It was not until a tragic event sparked a moment of clarity that she decided to take her business online and step into the next phase of her career as a public speaking coach. She now works with coaches, consultants, and service providers who hate to sell and helps them write and deliver a speech that does the selling for them. Her clients routinely step off the stage to more leads, clients of their own, and future stage bookings. Laurie-Ann is the best-selling author of Rethink Leadership, 4 Lessons to Make You Remarkable, and Rethink Your Leadership, How to Influence Your Team to Empower and Promote Engagement. She is also the host of the top-performing Be in Demand podcast. Laurie-Ann, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Who was that woman that you were talking about?
She sounds amazing.
I'm going to meet her. It's always so funny to hear your own bio like read while you're just like sitting here. It's like, damn, I did all those things.
Doesn't it feel good though? That's the thing. It's so important, I think, to have it read back to you. It's not like you're looking at your resume. There's something powerful about that.
Right. And that's a particular bio that you wrote based on our earlier conversation. So it's even more different because I wasn't expecting all those wonderful things that you said. So thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Of course. So Laurie-Ann, there are so many things I want to ask you, and we usually dive in wherever you want to start. But because I know there's a couple of twists and turns to your story, can you start us off just giving us a little bit of background, just kind of where you grew up and just a little bit of that?
I grew up in southern New Hampshire when I was a young teenager, 13. My family moved to Japan. So I lived overseas for a couple of years when it wasn't a fad like it is today to live overseas. And my father was not in the military. My father worked for the Raytheon, the defense company that had contracts with the Japanese government. So that's how we ended up there for a couple of years. Now, I'm also 5'10". Do you know what that's like, being a 13-year-old 5'10" girl who can see from one end of the train to the other end of the train during rush hour and have people say, "You're only 13," as they look up at me like I'm some giant?
Oh my gosh. What an interesting cultural change for you, just overall.
And what an interesting time, like an age, to also be taken out of the United States and into another country. As somebody who has dated people who are not natively from the United States, I had a gentleman say, "You're so accommodating and open to other cultures." And
Interesting.
I think because of living overseas and seeing something completely different did benefit me in the long run, because like I am very accepting of like, oh, that's just like, that's their religion. That's the way that they were brought up. That's just their culture.
Well, and being there at 13 when you're kind of in your formidable age where you're pretty impressive and sometimes you can get into a little bit of a bubble within that. So being exposed to that at that age probably was really powerful too.
Very powerful. I'm so glad and really grateful for the experience to have been taken out of the United States at that particular time.
Nice. So you were there for how many years?
2 years.
Wow. And then you came back to the States?
Then we came back to the States, the same school system, same friends. And it was just like, like 2 years goes by and it's like, you look familiar. You know, but,
Where did
but
you go?
yeah, but 2 years, like from 13, and all of a sudden all my friends are 15. And it's like, wow, you look different. You're taller.
The growth spurt happened.
It was a little bit of culture shock even coming back to the United States.
Now you say that you were a very shy person. Does that go back to way back when?
That does go back to being a little girl, even a teenager. And that's something that, you talk about the twists and turns in my life. There was a time so I was probably maybe 17 and I was working in a grocery store, very shy. And I would just look at my friends. And this was just one of those like downloadable moments. And I didn't realize how it was going to change the rest of my life. But I remember like looking at my friends and how they were like, they would make eye contact and have just these free conversations. And I realized at that moment, me not making eye contact with people was not going to serve me in the long run, that I had to be able to make eye contact with people. So I just challenged myself. It's just like, all right, just look at somebody when they're talking to you, even just for a few seconds. And I did. And then I looked away. And I realized, okay, the earth did not open up and swallow me whole. The person I was talking to did not laugh at me. So I had this positive reinforcement. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could do that again, but a little bit longer and a little bit longer. So this shy girl who couldn't make eye contact, again, taught her nervous system new tricks.
I love that. But what is your family like? Were you an only child? Did you have siblings that were?
I do have siblings. I'm the oldest. And yes, now that I've been in my adult years for some time, I'm like, where did I learn to be shy? And I learned to be shy from my mom, who didn't have much self-confidence and was also mentally ill. She had bipolar. So if she was in her anything but her manic phase, she was afraid of people. I saw her behavior and I was just like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do, because we look at our parents as huge role models. We just imitate them.
So you get into the working world. When did you start? I mean, out of college. So where'd you go to school?
University in New Hampshire. And I studied exercise physiology.
Okay. So you go into what field from there?
The degree was really a lot of studying like cardiac rehab, the illness side of exercise and the body's physiology. So I did end up working in a hospital. I worked in cardiology for a long time. I did ultrasound. I did cardiac and vascular ultrasounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you did that kind of right out of college.
Essentially, yes.
Oh,
But it was, I didn't go to school for ultrasound. I went to, I have my bachelor's degree, but, I'm in the Boston area, which is really the medical mecca of the East Coast. And there's lots of teaching hospitals. So I actually got a job in a department that was known for doing great on the job training. They would take people in, and it was a very well respected department. So I learned a lot. I had to pass my boards. For somebody who didn't like school, I was actually, the boards that we take for ultrasound, there is a 60% fail rate. I am proud to say that I passed it the first time around.
that is amazing. I always thought, like, when I think of ultrasound, I always think of like the technicians as being nurses. like it's not a nursing degree. It's a
No, it's
different
not
deal
a nursing
altogether.
degree. Yeah, it's something completely
Oh,
different. There's a lot of physics and science in it.
wow. Okay, so you are doing that now. Did you say that you went to selling medical devices? How did you switch into that?
Here I am, like working in the hospital, just doing my thing. And this woman came in, and her title was she worked for the company that we equipment that we had. And her title was she was an application specialist. And she came in and she would customize or teach us how to use the new software, et cetera. And I was just like, that's what I want to do. So there I am, like some 22, 24-year-old. I don't remember. And it was just like, that's what I want to do. And that's what I ended up doing.
Why were you drawn to that though? What was it that drew you
I
to
think
it?
it was the teaching.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Teaching, inspiring people like how to use the equipment to best get the information that they needed to help the patient, help the doctor, help the surgeon. I was just fascinated with it. And also there was this social component. I was just like, I could do that. So I did meet somebody who I asked him, I said, this is the field that I want to go into. What should I do? When I think back to like, I didn't get any career advice from my parents. Like, I don't even know where some of these questions came. And this guy, he told me, he goes, so what's your background? And I answered him and he said, learn this. It was a new sort of skill that was in ultrasound. He goes, you learn that. He goes, and then come back. And I ended up working for that company in the New England area.
That is amazing. So you kind of just went for it.
I did. I figured out what I needed and just did the thing.
Okay, so this is once again, I think this is going to be the common thread through our conversation. As we continue to talk, we're going to talk about how you continue to do this.
Because one of the things I have noticed in my past is that I don't necessarily think too far down the road, like, what will people think?
Mm-hmm.
What will my dad say or my mom say if I'm changing jobs again? Because they didn't understand that I was trying to get this experience so that I could move over to the medical device side. So I do have this tendency just to like, this seems like a good idea. Let me go do
Which
it.
is the beauty of it, right? Because you don't let something get in the way and then psych you out of it. How many years were you with the device
I was
company?
only with them for 2 years.
Okay.
That was it.
What happened to move you away from that?
A couple of things. One, it was just like, all right, I achieved the goal. Check. I'm an application specialist. Great. I did it. Like I never set any other goal. But while I was at Accusson, I had heard about this thing called coaching. And the CTI, the Coaches Training Institute, would like go do strategic cities and have these weekend programs. So they happened to be coming to Providence. And on Fridays, they do their free like demo class. And then you like pay to stay for Saturday and Sunday. And I was like, I'm going to go check this thing out. I don't really understand what this coaching thing is, but let me just go check it out. So I scheduled to see some clients that were in Providence in the morning. And then I went to this program and I fell in love with it. But I went in there with the intention that, wow, this would be a great form of communication with my clients, my customers, and also with my team. But I fell in love with it and really started using some of the coaching questions when we were trying to sell products in new hospitals. But then I was just like, this medical stuff, like I didn't feel part of a team and I wanted to feel a part of something or to know that I was making a difference. So I was like, I'm going to go start my own business. I'm going to become a life coach. I just told my boss, I was just like, I handed her my letter of resignation and she was like, what are you going to do? And I told her and I remember her saying, I wish there was something else that I could do. And I said to her, there is, but you literally have to have the courage to go and do it. So I ended up leaving and had no business plan, had no real sales experience for myself. I could sell a piece of equipment, but I didn't know how to sell myself and my services. And I thought, oh, well, if I build it, they will come, right? By the way, anybody who's listening to that, that is not true. Only in that one movie.
Yes, yes.
So I had to figure this out really quick because, the bills come in and they expect to be paid. I accidentally said yes to a speaking opportunity.
Now, how did the speaking opportunity come into sort of your path?
I was working with a couple of other women who we all met at these networking events, but they were very focused the way that men like to network. And women just network differently. So we wanted to create and plan this event that was really more geared for women. So we were like, let's have education, but also networking. We found the place, the venue. We had a full house. But everybody like literally turned to me and said, Laurie-Ann, you're going to be the speaker. So I knew ahead of time that I was going to be the speaker. But I shook my head yes. And inside I was like, what are you doing? You don't speak in front of people.
Was it a topic for the conference? So you sort of had an idea, or were you just like, well, okay, I'm just going to get up and wing it?
I did plan on what I was going to talk about. Now I will tell you, like, I was a life coach. So it had nothing to do with life. Nothing. It had everything to do with business because I knew that business people were going to be there. So I wanted to give the audience something that if they were business people and business owners, what could they actually use? So I just didn't think life coaching, like, what am I going to talk about? Life balance? I didn't. I actually talked about websites
Okay.
and about creating websites that your customer actually wants and not what you think is important. I don't even know where I came up with this.
Which is a very I mean, that's like valuable. Truly, that's a valuable topic, especially back then when it's like people were just starting with websites and all of that. So you probably hit a gold mine not realizing as well.
Just really interesting that I would even talk about that. But when I got up there to speak, I turned into what I call the college professor. So I just got up there and I just started dishing out information. So there was no beginning. Nobody knew who I was really, or where I came from, or what my background was, because I certainly didn't tell them that in my speech. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. And when I came to an end, when I was done talking, I didn't close my speech like I would today. This is exactly what I said. Okay, now I'm done. And if you want to talk to me, I'll be in the back of the room.
That's okay, though. At least you're inviting people to ask questions. But okay, I see what you're saying.
But it's so almost princess like I'm done now. And I laugh about that, but I also tell the story to lots of audiences because I want you to realize like I've come so far.
Yeah.
Speaking is a skill. There's no DNA that says you're going to be a professional speaker. So I was in the back of the room and people came up to me and they said, so do you have a website? Do you work with clients? Can I hire you? I was just like, did you not see the train wreck? And I was just like, oh yeah, here's my card. Let me have your card. And I thought it was a fluke. Like it must
Yes.
have just been a fluke. But then I was like, oh, let me speak again. And guess what happened? People came up to me again.
And the second time around, you kind of refined,
I started
obviously.
to refine it a little bit more, a little bit better. I've always been what can I learn from that so that I make the next one better?
Which I think is such a great mindset to have, especially with something like public speaking. And I'm saying this only having done it not very often myself. So I don't have a lot of learned experience yet. But to have that feeling of like, this is just, once again, it's going to add to the next, add to the next, add to the next. It keeps you from sort of beating yourself up about, like, gosh, I should have said this or that. So I like that. I feel like it's kind of an additive thing or an additive process.
Yeah, it really is. And so I ended up filling up my coaching roster because eventually I started talking about topics that I knew more information about instead of websites because I didn't want to help people design websites.
Right.
And I ended up going to National Speakers Association. And all I heard there was write a book, write a book, write a book, something that the audience can take away and continue to learn from you. So I wrote a book. That's the first one, Rethink Leadership: 4 Lessons to Make You Remarkable. And that ended up pushing me into the leadership industry. Now that I was speaking in leadership, I was also graduating from life coaching to executive coaching. And so I started speaking more, but it was also a way that I was attracting clients.
The leadership piece, was that a natural thing for you? Did you feel like you kind of moved into it because it was the natural progression from what you were doing, or just the audiences that you were starting to
A little bit of
resonate
both,
with?
but there
Yeah,
was a line that's in my first book that says, leadership is not what you do, it's who you become.
I love that because that's very true.
Yeah, so both of those books are modern day parables. They're stories. They're told in story formats. And the first one is it takes place in a coffee shop, someplace that you probably run into the same people every single Monday through Friday because you're showing up at the same time to get your latte. So it's very entertaining, I should say. And it taught the lessons. So the mentor is the one who said leadership is not what you do, it's who you become. So I really got known for saying that. And so I think me moving into leadership and executive coaching was just a natural bridge for me to cross.
So when you talk about speaking and how this sort of progressed, right? You were doing more and more of it. How were you getting speaking engagements? What was putting you up on stage? Was it through organizations that you were part of, or was it people just asking you here and there?
Speaking is really a long game. It's building relationships with meeting planners, with association conference organizers. You're just constantly building relationships. And there was a time where my husband and I, he's like, let's go down to Florida because we have a place down in Florida. And he said, like, let's go down for the winter. And I was like, okay, that's all I have to hear since I have a snow allergy. And so we went down there. But what I did was, how do you get known in a new area? Well, speak at Rotaries. Rotaries are filled with people from different businesses.
Interesting.
So I came up with a way so that I could tell like which Rotaries I should be pitching myself to. And they love the leadership.
Now, what is a Rotary exactly? Like, I know the name, but I'm trying to think of what it is.
It's a civic organization.
Okay.
They do things for the community, and they also, one of their big missions is to eradicate polio globally.
Okay. Okay. So there's a health component to the
Yes.
back. Okay. Got it.
The Rotary also, like, you can speak, and they would be like, oh, you're speaking on leadership. Normally, our speakers only speak for 15 minutes, but we're going to give you 30.
Oh,
Yeah. And you're not allowed to promote anything in the Rotary. Well, I have sold more copies of my book in Rotaries because I would tell them like, hey, is it okay if I offer this book? Because for every copy that I sell, it's a $20 book. I'll donate $10 to your polio foundation. I make that pitch in the end.
yeah.
And that's my best business card.
Oh, I love
And then I
that.
would have people from the audience because I sort of like subconsciously seed things in my speech. And this is something that I also teach my clients to do. But they would come up to me afterwards and be like, I know exactly where else you need to speak.
Oh, that's gold.
During that winter, I probably spoke to 30 different Rotaries within 3 months.
Whoa.
And so that's a lot of people because some of those
Yes.
Rotaries were very big.
I mean, is Florida like, is it a geographical thing, or any state has a ton of Rotaries in them?
Rotaries around the globe, and they
Yeah.
have meetings Monday through Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Whoa. That's a whole new concept to me. I've never heard of that.
I always tell people, like, if you're looking to get into speaking, they always need a speaker for every single meeting. All you got to do is say, here's my zip code and show me what Rotaries are in the area.
And that's a good tip for any of us out there that want to start getting up on that big stage.
And it's a great way for you to even test new material. You want to test out a new story. You want to test out what I was talking about, this subconsciously, like you're seeding things in your speech so that the audience walks away like, oh, Laurie-Ann's a coach. Oh, she's got this group program. Oh, she has this other speech.
Isn't that funny too when you're an audience member and that kind of thing gets sparked in you? Like you say, you don't realize that actually the speaker, there's so many offshoots from it that can happen. Okay, now you since then, so being this on-stage speaker, how long were you doing that for before you kind of made a bit of a shift?
Gosh, I would say that incident, like just trying to make a name for myself down in Florida was like down in 2012.
Okay.
So I'd already been speaking for quite a while. But right around 2016 to 2017, I was very busy. Like so busy that I would come home, take the dirty clothes out of the suitcase, put them through the wash and throw them back into the suitcase because I was leaving the next day.
And this was speaking engagements or was this coaching
Speaking.
and okay.
I was doing a lot of speaking on stages. Companies would bring me in to speak at their like in-house conferences, whether they were sales meetings, inspirational meetings, planning meetings.
So did you have to have a topic for each of those, or did you have kind of a signature speech that you then would tailor to?
That's what I teach people is like, you don't need to have to recreate the wheel and recreate a new speech. Have a signature speech. And there's a way that you can actually infuse and really make it personal so that the audience, this is the goal. You want the audience to think that you wrote that speech just for them.
Got it. Interesting. See this, you're pulling back the curtain here a little bit.
Yes, I am. I'm an open book when it comes to speaking.
But it's great because it is a bit of a black box, I have to say. Like, and this is one thing that I know might come up or that might be of interest to people to know. But when you first start speaking, what is the range of like, are you speaking for free at first and then you could potentially go into like a couple $1,000? Like, how do you hit those markers? And maybe it depends on the industry too.
It does depend on your industry, and it also depends on like what's your reason for speaking. So I am very happy to speak for what I call no fee. So it's not free because there's always an exchange of value. So I will speak for no fee because I know that I'm going to make a boatload of money on the back end. Now, this is with what I do now. But when I was a leadership speaker, oh yeah, I was paid like $10,000 for a
Each time.
keynote. Yeah. But what's the lower end? I would say like the lower end of speaking, of paid speaking, is $4,500.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad. And I would say there's a lot of opportunity at $4,500.
But is that an hour speech? Is that a half hour?
It depends on your philosophy. Some people say like, yes, that's an hour, but a lot goes into that hour, like a lot of preparation, meetings, interviews, post-event meetings, however you want to word it. But other people say like it's a day rate. Like if I'm there, I can also do a breakout session. Like I offer that to my meeting planners because that now they have more, I'm adding more value to their conference. And they're probably going to say yes to me versus the person that says, hey, this is what I charge for a keynote. And if you want me to do a breakout session, this is how much it's going to be. A lot of organizations have budgets for the event.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you want to do is you want to find out what's your budget for speakers, plural. Because if I can fill 2 slots for you, guess what? They're probably going to pick me.
Right, right. Oh, interesting. This is such interesting terrain. Okay. So keep going. I want you to continue your story.
So there I was a little exhausted by hopping on and off airplanes, jet lag. And something happened in Fort Lauderdale that unless you live in the Fort Lauderdale airport area, you probably do not remember this. But here in the United States, we're allowed to travel with your firearms if you have the right paperwork. And baggage claim is out of TSA's jurisdiction. And a gentleman was traveling with his rifle or semi-automatic rifle, and he brought it into the men's room and he put it together and he came out firing. He did shoot 2 people, killed those 2 people. I think there was 1 or 2 other people that were injured, but the FAA, like kind of runs the show globally. And so every plane that was in the air came to a screeching halt, essentially landing in the nearest airport.
Wow. So everybody was grounded for this.
Yeah, they were afraid of copycats. So I literally was like, oh my gosh. My husband was traveling at the same time. He was away at that time. And I was like, universe, I just need a new business model.
Now, let's be clear. You were not in the airport at the time.
No, I was not in that airport. I was home. I was safely home. But this is how much that incident impacted me. The phone lines were busy. Like something that doesn't happen often with cell phones. Normally you go right to voicemail if somebody's on the phone or something. It was busy. Like I couldn't even get a hold of my husband to be like, are you okay?
Yes, yes.
And so that's why I was like, I said it once. That's the important thing to realize is like sometimes when you ask the universe for something, you just ask it with such conviction And it was like, universe, I need a new business model. That was it. 2 weeks later, I got a text message from somebody that said, Laurie-Ann, do you write speeches for people? And the answer was no. However, because I knew her and she did live near me, I agreed to meet her for coffee. She had a government job and she was 3 years away from retiring. She was going to be an image consultant as her retirement gig. So that's what her business was. She'd had it for 5 years and she'd been successfully losing money for 5 years. And her husband said, you can't keep doing this once you retire. So that's why she turned to me and I was like, oh, Sharon, I can teach you how to get booked. I'll teach you how to write a 3Cs presentation, and then I'll teach you how to leverage it into more. So then we started working together. I had so much fun helping her craft an amazing presentation that when she gave it to a Rotary, by the way, which remember, you're not allowed to pitch yourself.
Right.
She walked away with 3 full paying clients and she got referred to 2 other places to speak.
That's amazing. Now, is this where the seed was planted with you of like, interesting? That was tons of fun.
It was tons of fun. She hit it out of the park and it just made me think, I wonder if anybody else wants to know what I know.
There's something there, right?
Well, isn't that how us entrepreneurs, we like find something that like, wow, this is what I'm good at? I had so much fun. And I bet there's more people out there who want to know what I know.
Yes. And I think that there is that certain time too in your career where you come to that realization all of a sudden, like, oh, I have some valuable things that I could share. Like, it's not always that way. We don't always feel that way about ourselves. You know what I mean? And I think it's the moment sometimes brings that to light. Like once you've been able to help somebody and then you're like, wow, oh my gosh. And this is feeding my soul too. Who would have thought?
I mean, she gave me the greatest gift. I will say that I did still have speaking events on the calendar. I had this other website, Laurie-Ann Murabito, and so that was all about Laurie-Ann speaking about leadership and executive coaching. Then I started this Speak and Stand Out website. So I'm like running 2 different websites and 2 different businesses because there were people that I was already on their calendar. They already paid for me to come in and speak. They already put their deposit down. So I had to fulfill that without trying to confuse the audience about like, is she that or is she this?
Right. Well, and then how did it feel when she finally jumped into it wholeheartedly?
Oh, it felt great. As soon as I was done with my last event, I probably waited like a month. And then it was just like, oh, let's just move Laurie-Ann Murabito. Let's just redirect it over to this other website.
Well, and what's beautiful about that too, and we hear this a lot as entrepreneurs, like it's a pivot. You're making a pivot. You shift, you move, you see what works, you try other things. Like I know at least when I first started my own business, it was like, what if I fail? It's like, no, actually, we're going to probably fail at a lot of little things to get to the place that you're supposed to be. I mean, it's just the way it goes. But I think in your case, this is such a like, it was a winding path that kind of brought you to that sweet spot.
Yeah, it did. Like I had to do all those things in my
Yes.
past. I had to write the book so that I can tell my clients, like, this is how I made it a #1 bestseller. You know, it's a great stage. It's a business card that nobody's going to throw away. And I had to become the speaker. You know, I had to learn how to speak the hard way by making all the mistakes in my own speech so that I can save my clients years.
I have a question for you that's a little bit not off topic because it's about speaking, but I'm curious of what your thoughts are about when people say, and this is, I know, finding my own voice after writing a book, that was a big deal to me, although it wasn't speaking, right? So it was like you write a book and you put a lot out there into the universe and you're obviously, it's coming from within. But when you are learning to speak your truth, they say like singing is a good, like it's something to kind of like open up. And I know this is going to be, I'm not meaning to talk about chakras or anything, but like your throat chakra or your ability to express is supposedly helped by doing little exercises like that. Have you ever heard of any of that kind of stuff?
Singing sort of reminds me of Sonia Choquette. She wrote a whole book about singing your beliefs and your new identity into like who you really are. There is something about singing and it must tap into a different part of your brain And it helps to seal it in instead of like, if you're trying to like go to the gym and you keep coming up with all these excuses and well, you have to change your identity. Like I go to the gym in the morning. If you said that over and over again, but your part of you is like not believing it, well, guess what? You're not going to do the thing. But if you started singing, I go to the gym in the morning, and I'm not going to sing for everybody today, but just try it. Or look up Sonia Choquette, look up her book and tap into it.
But are there other tricks that you give people when you're helping them to sort of come out of themselves? Now, granted, having the right material, all of that is, I'm sure, what is the main focus of like how do you present and what do you present? But are there other tricks and tips if you have somebody that's painfully shy, that's like, oh my gosh, I've got to go and speak to people, even if it's a room of five.
That's right. Well, sometimes it can just be about imagining. Imagine the situation. How is it going to go? What's it going to be like? Because if you could predict what was going to happen when you spoke to those 5 people or those 15 or 50 people, if you could predict that it was going to go seamless, would you show up differently? Would you show up more confident knowing that the audience is going to love me? When you pick up your phone, you're going to go do an IG live or an IG story. What if you just said to yourself, everybody who watches this is going to fall in love with this idea, this tip, this thought of mine, and you start sharing it. But if you share it with that enthusiasm, like they want to hear this versus my business coach told me that I have to do this. Okay, hit live. I mean, like there's just a different energy. Like you're doing it because you have to do it versus I'm doing this because my people need this.
You hit a note there. I think that is the one thing, and I think we might have touched on this when we talked earlier. When it's being in service, when you can get your mind out of that ego of like, oh my God, am I wearing the right thing? Are people looking at me funny? I'm not a speaker. I mean, how all of those things that would go that go in the, what do we call it? The amateur mind or the mind of like the beginner versus I'm just the conduit. I'm just here to like deliver the message. It just takes you out of it. It's like, oh, I'm just the one who's delivering.
And the reason why that very first speech that I gave, even though I was talking about websites, the reason why that went over so well was because I got up there and I just served the audience.
Right.
I didn't think about myself, my outfit. What would people think? What if somebody asked me a question? You're not being fully present when you start thinking about all those things. When you are fully present with the audience and you are passionate about what you are telling them and sharing with them, they can't help but feel that in their hearts, their minds, their souls.
Honestly, I think there's probably a lot of different mindset shifts that can be made, but also how to ingratiate yourself to an audience or how to get an audience to start to kind of feel what you feel type of thing. There's probably a lot of different techniques to do that kind of stuff, which just fascinates me because I think it's such an opportunity though to put yourself out there in a different way. And then the fruits of that can be a whole variation of things can come out of that you're not even expecting.
Yes. I mean, there's science behind pausing, speaking fast versus speaking a little bit slower and maybe a lower volume. I mean, to have this range with your voice makes you such a powerful speaker. You certainly don't want a speaker getting up there and having this memorized presentation. Then it sounds like they're reading the phone book. How boring is that?
Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds exhausting. I'm just kidding. I think though there is something to be said, and I can remember a trainer from years ago used to tell me that after a day of training, she was spent. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting because it's true. You're putting out the energy for that period of time, whether it's an hour or 2 hours or whatever. And it does take a lot out of you.
It does. Because you're on. You are just on. I took years ago, I actually was taking some modeling classes and commercial classes. So basically like you're acting. And the one thing I remember from the commercial classes is the instructors said, whatever emotion you want the audience to feel, you have to do it 150% so that hopefully they'll feel it by 75%. So if you want to be sad, like you have to be really sad just so that people get it.
Well, it's like watching a play. If you really think about actors in a play, they're almost over indexing on an emotion? Because I don't know, that maybe that's what it is. It's like you don't pick up on that unless maybe it's how they're presenting it.
Overly obvious.
Okay, so Laurie-Ann, tell us about what is coming next for you in your work.
I am actually launching a program called In-Demand Signature Speech. It has been 2 years since I did this as a group program. I'm really excited about this. I've just been spending the last 2 years working with private clients. And I had a couple of conversations recently, and people were just like, when are you bringing this back? Because they had missed it last time.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, fine, I'll run it again. So I'm actually running this as a group program. We start February 17th. I'm doing this as a group program. In 8 weeks, this group will have a completed signature speech that they will be proud to deliver, and also confident knowing that it will deliver them the 3 C's, which is it's compelling, it's captivating, and most importantly, it is converting.
Laurie-Ann, thank you so much for joining us. It was just so fun to meet you and talk through this story with you. I mean, prior to the podcast, I learned so much. On the podcast, I've learned so much. You and I will probably have another conversation outside of the podcast.
Probably.
It's been such a delight, and I love what you do, and I'm fascinated by what you do, but I also love the road that kind of got you to where you are now, and sky's the limit, right? You got a lot more going on, I'm sure, with the groups that you're forming. And are you working with private clients mostly?
Yes, mostly
Okay.
private clients, and then also this group In-Demand Signature Speech. But I also want to encourage your audience, if you are interested in dipping your toe into the water of public speaking, because there's 20,000 events that are happening today, and 7,500 of those are here in the United States. There is so much opportunity that you're missing it. And it's so much opportunity to get in front of your ideal clients. So if you just want to dip your toe in the water, feel free to listen to my podcast, Be in Demand, because it will give you a lot of tips, like concrete tips that you can actually use and start implementing today.
I love it. Laurie-Ann, thank you. And we're going to have all of Laurie-Ann's links in the show notes for anybody who's interested. Thank you again. This was such a pleasure.
This was a great conversation. I just love talking with you.
I love talking with you. Thank you. Thank you. And that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.